For the past 2 days, I've been chasing a crazy XRP rumor. They say that Wall Street might be quietly preparing to grab 5% of all XRP, and I just had to find out if there was any truth to this. So what I discovered actually left me stunned, and it might just change how you think about XRP's future. So this is how it started, right? I'm an XRP holder, and I hang out in our free educational Discord. The link, by the way, is in the description. Now, this is where we swap news and theories all day long. And now, a few days ago, someone in there, they said, what would happen if an XRP ETF gobbled up 5% of the entire XRP supply? Now, honestly, I kind of just laughed it off. I mean, it sounded like typical crypto moon boy talk, right? 5% of all XRP is a massive amount after all. But that is then when I noticed some actual news that made me think twice about this. It turns out that crypto ETFs are expanding beyond just Bitcoin and Ethereum. In fact, Solana, of all the coins that can't manage to keep the lights on, actually recently saw their launch of two US-based ETFs. And get this, one of those Solana funds actually pulled in almost $70 million of investor money on its first day, while of course the sibling fund only managed $4 million. Now, seeing tens of millions of dollars pour into an altcoin ETF was a little bit of a wake-up call. Even a Grayscale executive said that these Solana ETFs might actually eventually hold up to 5% of all of the SOL supply. Yeah, that statistic, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because if Wall Street is bold enough to aim for 5% of Solana, what might they do with XRP? Now, XRP, it has been waiting for its own ETF moment, hasn't it? And it might be just around the corner. Right? Big players like Bitwise and Canary Capital have reportedly amended their XRP ETF filings to try and fast-track an approval, similar to how the Solana, Hedera, and Litecoin funds launched just a couple of weeks ago. So this isn't just a Discord rumor anymore. No, this is an XRP ETF that could actually be on the horizon, maybe a lot sooner than we expected. So at this point, my curiosity was in overdrive, right? Because if these XRP ETFs end up taking 5% of the supply off of the market, how insane could the price get? Now, is this just hopium, or is there some real math behind it? Now, I cleared my schedule, I opened up 50 browser tabs, and I went down the XRP rabbit hole to just find out. Now, along this journey, I also stumbled onto something that gave me a whole different perspective on the crypto space. A quick detour before we get back to our XRP, if you will. Now, in the midst of digging through all of the ETF data, I came across a project called Unity Nodes. And I have to share this because it is rather fascinating. Now, Unity actually lets you turn your smartphone into a part of a global network that verifies the telecoms grid and rewards you in crypto. Here is how it works. You install this app on your phone, and it makes some short period calls to test out the local cell towers around you. And the results of those test calls, they get recorded onto a blockchain so that everything is transparent and tamper-proof, right? And for providing this service, you actually earn crypto rewards. It's kind of like crypto mining, but instead of solving some math puzzles, your phone is just checking signal strength and call quality and, of course, the network integrity. Now, how cool is that? I love this concept because it shows that crypto isn't just about trading and price charts anymore. It's actually about solving some real-world problems in rather new and innovative ways. While Wall Street is doing its thing with billion-dollar ETFs, regular people like you and I, we're out here turning our phones into mini cell towers, or at least cell tower auditors, for crypto rewards. Now, that little side quest into Unity Nodes was actually a reminder of just how innovative this space actually is. All right, let's get back to the big question at hand. What happens if XRP ETFs really do absorb 5% of the total supply? Well, to figure this out, I had to get down to some serious number crunching. Now, before I get into the math, here is a very quick reality check. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility. And you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video should be considered as entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so that's the disclaimer. It's done, it's over with. Thanks for bearing with me on that one. I know that it was long, but I do mean every single word. Now, let's get into those numbers. First, some context here. 5% of XRP's total supply is roughly 4.95 billion XRP. At the current price of somewhere around $2 and let's say 20 for some round numbers, that would be somewhere in the range of $12.3 billion worth of XRP being taken out of the market. $12 billion, yeah. Just imagine that amount of XRP effectively locked up by ETFs and not readily available to trade. That is a huge potential squeeze on the supply. In traditional thinking, if supply drops and demand stays the same, the price should rise. But crypto markets have this wild phenomenon where a little bit of buying pressure can pump the market value of a coin by an awful lot. It's often called the inflow-to-valuation multiplier. Basically, when new money flows into crypto, it can cause a chain reaction of buying and repricing that makes the total market cap grow much more than the initial inflows. For example, an analyst named Dom pointed out that at one point, $61 million of new money flowing into XRP led to about a $16.6 billion increase in XRP's market cap. That was roughly a 272 times multiplier on that inflow. Sounds pretty crazy, right? Well, now, that was during a particularly frenzied period, of course. On calmer days, the multiplier might be significantly smaller, let's say 50x or even below 100x, to be safe. And on some crazy hyped days, it could spike to well over 300x. Most recently, during that whole crash to $1.25, we saw the multiplier hit over 1000x. Pretty crazy. Now, it basically just shows that in a bull run, each dollar can sometimes create dozens or even hundreds of dollars of value in the overall market cap, thanks to momentum and FOMO. Now, I'm not going to assume a 272x boost for XRP from an ETF. That would probably be a bit too optimistic. But let's be more conservative and say that 5% supply shock triggers a good 70x multiplier effect, which on the lower end of the kind of big crypto moves that we've seen then, right? It would roughly be $12.3 billion of flows into XRP via ETFs, and each dollar contributes $70 to the market cap. That's an increase of around $861 billion added to XRP's market cap. Add that to XRP's current market cap of around $150 billion, and we'll be looking at about $1.01 trillion total valuation for XRP. Now, drumroll. What would the price per XRP be in that scenario? Well, divide the $1.01 trillion by the 60 billion XRP that's in circulation, and you're going to get about $16.85 per XRP. Yeah, let's round that to, let's say, $17. So $17 for one XRP compared to $2 and some change that it is today. Now that is nearly a 6x increase and almost 600% move from its current price. Now, in all of my years following XRP, I've never seen a projection like that grounded in actual data. Actually, usually those kind of big numbers are just made up by hype, right? But no, not in this particular case. It is grounded in solid, logical, actual data. So seeing $17 as a calculated possibility honestly made me do a bit of a double take. I was kind of stunned. And of course, this is conservative-based numbers too. Now, before we all go dreaming of retiring early or going down to the local Lamborghini dealership, let's temper this with some reality. Because this is, of course, a theoretical scenario, a what if, right? Now, in practice, a lot of things would have to go right for a $17 XRP to materialize. For one, the entire 5% supply absorption by, by institutions is a pretty big assumption anyway, right? Is possible with ETFs that might not gather that much interest. I don't believe that to be true, with so many applications completely outpacing other altcoins anyway, right? So I think actually there's probably going to be a significant demand coming in from the ETFs personally. But, let's play devil's advocate. Maybe they only end up holding maybe 1 or 2% of the supply, especially if investors, maybe they are not as enthusiastic as we all think they are. Remember, right? Even with Solana, one ETF had a huge opening day and the other one barely made a dent. But again, that comes down to the who behind the ETFs. Very important. Also, even if eventually 5% of XRP gets locked away, it will likely happen, or at least it won't likely happen overnight, right? It could take a while. The buying could be gradual, over months, or even years. And markets are forward-looking. If traders know an ETF is kind of buying up, well, they might just start pushing the price up before the ETF actually accumulates all of that XRP. That could spread out or dilute the impact. On top of all of that, as the price climbs, you can bet that some holders will start taking some profits off the table. I mean, if you bought XRP at 11 cents like I did, you're going to be thinking about it. I mean, who wouldn't consider taking a little bit off the table at $5 or $10, right? Those sell-offs would add resistance to the price growth. So the $17 scenario is kind of like a good little storm, not a perfect storm, because I think perfect storm would be significantly higher in price. I'm going to say, a well-timed storm outcome. Exciting to think about for sure, but by no means is it going to be guaranteed. Now, with all that said, even the possibility has me a little bit more optimistic about XRP's long-term potential. Now, a year or two ago, the idea of XRP being in ETF conversations or $1 trillion scenarios would have kind of sounded a little bit absurd, wouldn't it, right? But yet here we are. The crypto landscape is changing fast. The fact that these institutions are even considering XRP for ETF products is a pretty huge vote of confidence in the asset itself, whether they end up taking 1% or 5% of the total supply. Now, it signals that XRP is on the radar of serious investors, not just us normal retail folk. Part of me, of course, is bullish, right? I am bullish, but I'm also going to not be so reckless, right? I'm holding my XRP and I'm keeping an eye on those ETF decisions or those loopholes that they're trying to get around at the moment, just like Solana, Litecoin, and 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗋. But I'm also going to be staying grounded, right? One thing that I've learned in crypto is to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, or at least for things not to go according to plan. Now, for example, if XRP ever does start skyrocketing, history shows that some trading platforms will probably struggle to keep up with the volume. Now, we've seen exchange outages, withdrawals, or even complete collapses in the case of FTX, stealing everybody's funds, right? So don't use that exchange. I know they relaunched. Avoid it like the plague. Anyway, all that chaos during the past bull runs, right? The last thing you want is to be locked out of your account or unable to take profits because one site went down or one FTX decided to completely go into liquidation and steal everybody's assets. So, as a precaution, I have several exchanges in my arsenal. I've got my main go-to platforms and also some backups like Blowfin and BitGet. And yes, I have affiliate links for all of the exchanges that I personally use on my website. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help support the channel here. So if you do go over to the website and sign up to any of those exchanges, I want to say a big thank you because it really does mean an awful lot to the channel. Now, the point is this, I have already completed signups and KYC on multiple exchanges. So if one has an issue, I can just quickly switch to another one. Think of it like having a backup generator during a power outage, or, a backup blockchain for when Solana goes offline. Anyway, this strategy has saved me a whole ton of stress in the past when one major exchange temporarily froze withdrawals and I just hopped over to one of my backups and kept on going. It's kind of like a preparation or little preparation that can make a huge difference when things get very wild. Now, as we near the end of this journey, I'm honestly just amazed at how things are evolving here, right? I went from rolling my eyes at these wild questions on Discord to actually mapping out a scenario where XRP hits double digits. Now, it shows how important it is to stay informed and open-minded in crypto. A lot of crazy sounding stuff can turn out to be, or at least to have some real substance actually behind it. Whether XRP reaches $5, $10, $17, or even $30, any number really. This whole exercise has reminded me why I fell in love with this space, right? It's that blend of big institutional moves and grassroots innovations that actually is all happening at once, right? We've got Wall Street potentially pumping billions of dollars into XRP, and we've got everyday people running mobile nodes to improve the telecom network. It's a wild mix, and it's why crypto never ceases to amaze me. Now, I'm going to keep doing my own homework here. I'm going to stay cautious, and I'm going to enjoy the ride. And hey, this was a great reminder to stay curious, but also stay rational. So, thanks for hanging out with me today on this little adventure, a little shorter than normal. And if you have enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's happening next.